What's up, everyone? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, NVIDIA, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's going on with the economic calendar moving forward, talk about more data that's coming out, what you should be watching for as time progresses. Let me just mention that I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total. And the offer ends very soon in just 5 days. Anyways, for SPY, I just want to note that there is a possible downtrend that can be respected right over here if we do fail to break the high from yesterday. And we do reject from right here, especially breaking below our 20 EMA, opens the doors for this gap fill down here and more potential downside. I'll break down more information about this in just a minute. Let me just note that we got the PCE data report, and it's been pretty decent. Most things were aligned with expectations, but some things were so-so. So PCE month over month on the core side was at 0.2%, very close to expectations, a little bit high, but once again, not too bad. And then PCE month over month for all items was also at 0.1%, aligned with expectations. Year over year, PCE for all items was at 2.5%, aligned with expectations right here. And we have core PCE at 2.6% year over year. This is actually just a tiny bit higher than expected, but not bad whatsoever. It's not really that big of a difference. So not bad. The data was aligned with expectations. Some things are a little bit hot, but it's okay. It's all very, very minor and nothing too bad whatsoever. Then at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 30 minutes after the market opens, we also have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report, the 5-year inflationary expectations, and more data coming out, which could cause even more volatility. So watch for volatility at this time for today, guys. Moving forward, I just want to mention that there are some important things to know before the market opens as well. With the market had quite an interesting day, we kind of pumped and dumped yesterday, and we'll have to see if we get a similar move or not. Other signs of growth in the U.S. economy are still decent after we got the GDP numbers. And besides that, we're not really seeing anything else that's too crazy. I also want to note that for SPY's options chain, we have just over 430,000 calls expiring and over 800,000 of these puts expiring with the 1.89 put to call ratio. Max pain's at 547, but so far I'm still seeing weakness developing on the charts. So my concern for the markets is the fact that if you look at SPY, this is actually downtrending. There's a high up here, we came down, made a lower high, came down, made a lower high, and we've been continuing to downtrend for quite some time. So right now, if you look at SPY, we pushed all the way up to just under 544. I was anticipating a little bit of a gap up, and we're going to likely gap up. The question is, can we break 545? And if we break our 50 EMA at 545, can we break past 548? And if we do break those levels, we could turn back up. We have to break 548 to turn back to bullish. If we fail to break 548 and we reject, okay, make sure you watch the 20 EMA at 542. If that fails, there's this gap to fill all the way down towards 539, and there is a risk of that if we end up losing 542. So in my personal opinion, even though I try to be as unbiased as possible, it looks to me like the most favorable possibility would be that we get a rejection. We do come down to fill this gap. That's looking a little bit more favorable to me, but watch for confirmation. If we lose 542, there's a risk of that happening. If we break past 545 and 548, we could turn back to bullish. As of right now, the chart is showing some weakness, and there is a potential lower high rejection that could be coming. For NVIDIA has been pushing back up towards its 50 EMA around 116. If that breaks, this inverse head and shoulders could actually push us all the way back up towards 118 and eventually 121. But if we fail to break past this 116 to 117 area and we end up rejecting, make sure you watch 114.5 as key support. If that breaks, there's a big gap to fill all the way down here towards 112. So I'll be watching to see if we get a rejection, come back down to 112, and then try to bounce. As of right now, NVIDIA is just barely testing resistance. It has a range that I'm going to be watching for, but I'm going to be looking at this gap just to be safe. As of right now, in the pre-market, it's trying to push it, showing some strength compared to the market. So if we could break 116, it might just start going up straight up and avoid this gap. So we'll just have to wait and see, but NVIDIA is showing a lot of strength in my opinion. For Bitcoin has been pushing quite a bit, but the thing is, we have a head and shoulders like structure. This could be a left shoulder, this could be head, this could be a right shoulder. If we break past 67,500, I'll be looking for these highs to be tested and broken. If we reject here, I'll be looking for a test of 66,500 for rejection. The head and shoulders is a possibility, so watch for that very carefully. For others out there, if you want to look at like ES is testing its 50 EMA. If it rejects here, look at our 20 EMA as support at 54.75. If that breaks, there's going to be a bigger move to the downside coming. For SPX, we're also rejecting right here. I just wanted to call out that we have this gap to fill all the way down here towards 53.75. So there's going to be a risk of some downside with that. For Tesla, we're also rejecting right here on Tesla, but it depends if we could try to break past 225 or not. If we break 225, I could be looking for 229. If it rejects here and we end up losing 222, there'll be a risk of us dipping down to 220. There's a possible double top leg structure that could be forming. It depends if we hold 222 or not. If we lose this, I'll be looking for a gap fill down to 220, and then 219 is going to be critical support. If Tesla loses this, there's going to be a risk of more downside. So watch this setup very, very carefully just to see how things end up developing. For the QQQ, unfortunately, just like SPY, we have a potential lower high that's being established. We had this high right here at 468. We came down. We may be making a lower high. If we break 465 and 468, we could turn back to bullish. If we fail to do so, I'll be looking at 461 as key support. If that breaks, we'll be dipping back down to 458 to fill that gap. So just be very, very mindful, very, very careful. For Aapl, we have 220 as resistance. We have support currently around this 219 area. If 219 breaks, we could be coming back down to about 218 to fill this gap. I do see a risk of Aapl dipping just a bit, but then the thing is, the bigger picture could be an inverse head and shoulders. So even if we do dip a little bit, we could try to rebound and start pushing. If we break past 220 and hold above our 50 EMA, we could be going all the way up to 222 plus. So there's an inverse head and shoulders setup. We'll see if we dip and then bounce, or if we bounce from here on Aapl. Unless we lose 217.64, this is favoring like a little dip and a bounce. Unless we lose that support, then things could change. But for now, we're holding up. For the IWM, we did push a little bit, but just be careful. If it breaks 225, we remain bullish. If we fail here at 223, I'll be looking for a gap fill down to about 221. So just be careful. Watch your levels on the IWM. I see a risk of this coming back down to 222 at the very least, and then we'll see if it bounces. For Coinbase, we're looking at this 242 resistance. If it rejects and loses 240, look for a gap fill for 235. If we break past 245, look for a rebound. There's a risk of it rejecting because we are fighting some tough resistance. So we'll see how it does. It could also be a slanted head and shoulders, so just be careful on coin. For Amazon, we're looking at resistance towards 182. If it rejects here, we'll be looking for this gap fill down towards 180. So watch for that very carefully. Meta has a very similar setup. Got to break past 468 to turn bullish. Otherwise, there's a risk of us coming back down to 454 to fill that gap. Just be careful on Meta. Microsoft already came down to fill the gap, so we'll see if 418 holds. 418 is going to be critical support. If we lose that, this will be dipping down to 415, and as of right now, it's barely holding up. Look at 422 as resistance. If we break that, we could turn back up, but this is favoring downside. So is Google. We're just barely holding support around 168. If that breaks, I'll be looking for a move all the way back down towards 165. So far, it's just barely holding up. Anyways, guys, that's it for my analysis. The market obviously has some tough resistance. We'll have to see if we establish a lower high. There is a risk of us coming back down to fill some of these gaps. So just be open-minded and be very careful with the way you go about your trading. Don't forget, there's big data coming out, or some data worth noting at 10 o'clock a.m., the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Data and 5-year inflationary expectations. So we'll see how this ends up affecting the markets. Until then, thank you for listening. Have a great day and peace out.